The UFC is notorious for garnering views because of the show it riles up both inside and outside the Pentagon ring. New star Aussie Jenkins was the center of attention last night when he beat his opponent into a bloody pulp, but Dana White didn't seem impressed, even went ahead to call him a one-trick pony but still handed him a UFC contract. Let's check out what happened and just how the events unfolded. Starting off with the gory details of Aussie's match. Jenkins immediately grabbed control of the battle, securing a takedown in the opening round. Jenkins mounted his opponent, pounded his knees into Linares' ribs, and created a cut above his eyebrow with several hard elbows to the head across multiple rounds. He hammered Linares to a pulp, and his blood was soon flowing all over the canvas of the octagon. In fact, Jack even overcame a small equipment malfunction when his protective cup became loose. He continued to pound Linares until the referee intervened and stopped the fight at the end of the third round. Jenkins' performance astounded MMA fans, who predicted that it'd be only a matter of time until he fought in the UFC. Next, Dana White had his own views and comments to make. Jenkins was dubbed a one-trick pony by UFC President Dana White, who was shocked he didn't show off more of his kickboxing abilities, but he saw enough potential in the Australian to sign him to a UFC contract. "My issue with Jack Jenkins today was that he appeared to be a one-trick pony," White remarked. White also spewed lots of criticism, saying that the Aussie continued to fall to the ground. He further said that the young fighter totally dominated, but the lads lied to him, saying that he was a fantastic kickboxer. Tonight, according to Dana, he didn't see any of it. Dana was, however, impressed with how Jack was on a 7-win streak and even won his latest match with a stunning knockout victory and lots of blood. White again pleaded with the upcoming fighter to show him more kickboxing because that was what the player had emphasized more about himself. Regardless, White attended the season's last match and wanted to take the youngster in, and so he did. Jenkins agreed with White's assessment but added he was glad he won with a different skill than usual. The Australian stated all week that this was just the beginning for him. He did what he needed to do to get started, and now he was going to really ratchet up and show people what his max really was. Moving on, talking about the match from Linares' perspective. The performance impressed UFC President Dana White sufficiently that he signed the Australian to a UFC deal. Jenkins has earned a reputation as one of the greatest unsigned fighters in the country on the local MMA scene after racking up 6 consecutive victories with UFC light heavyweight Jimmy Crute, hailing him as a potential champion. The outstanding run, which included 2 defenses of Eternal MMA's featherweight championship, earned him a call to compete for a UFC contract. The man standing in his way was Ecuadorian Emiliano Linares, who was heading into the battle on a 4-bout victory streak that included 3 stoppages. Linares started the battle on the front foot, but after 30 seconds on the feet, Jenkins was able to capitalize on his opponent's aggression with a well-timed takedown to penetrate his opponent's guard. Jenkins aimed for the arm triangle while in both half guard and full mount, needing a stoppage to impress his boss-to-be. The Ecuadorian, on the other hand, used the cage and his amazing flexibility to wrap his legs around Jenkins and escape the bottom position before finishing up on the top to close the round. Up next, the closing, bloody moments of the match. Jenkins hit some strong knees to the body in the first minute of the second round before putting Linares on his back again. Jenkins caused more havoc this time. Blood began to flow from the right side of Linares' skull as the Australian delivered a huge elbow. Jenkins kept Linares under control for the rest of the round while painting the canvas with his opponent's blood. Soon, the Ecuadorian turned the tide and went on the offensive at the last minute of the fight, needing a stoppage to win. Despite Linares' best efforts to escape the bottom position, Jenkins stayed in command, and with 55 seconds remaining, Jenkins gained back mount and rained blows until the fight was stopped by the referee. On to Jenkins' thoughts post-match. The victory extends the Victorian's winning run to 7 fights in a row, and he was awarded a UFC contract at the end of the program, becoming the 4th Australian to do so following Jimmy Crute, Jack Della Maddalena, and Shannon Ross. Jenkins stated in his post-fight interview with Larasenko that Linares' penchant to overextend was the reason he began to employ a grappling style. The champion dedicated his bloody victory victory to a dear friend of his who was in the hospital. His accession to the UFC roster is another victory for Australian MMA, as fans in Australia get to witness one of their own compete on the big stage. Despite a one-dimensional yet effective performance, it is certain that we will see a lot more of Far Jack soon. We think the newbie has a lot more potential. He just needs more exposure and some tough love from his mentors to become the in-ring beast he can own up to. We mean, come on you guys, that match was as bloody as it can get and Aussie was smiling and roaming around the ring in triumph. It was exciting and scary to watch at the same time, and we think Dana wants just that kind of energy to take things forward in the UFC. Now, moving on to other news. Firstly, Henry Cejudo is thinking about making a big comeback. Henry Cejudo is feeling disoriented ahead of his possible comeback. Battling a May 2020 bantamweight title defense against Dominic Cruz, the former dual-division Ultimate Fighting Championship UFC champion hung up his gloves. Cejudo returned to the United States anti-doping agency USADA testing pool this year to prepare for a possible comeback to activity as a fighter. Cejudo, 35, has been open about his aim to become quadruple C by defeating current featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski. Unfortunately for Cejudo, Volkanovski is now in Abu Dhabi for UFC 280 this weekend, which is Saturday, October 18th, serving as the backup lightweight title bout in case everything goes wrong. Following that, presuming he does not compete at UFC 280, Volkanovski is anticipated to contend for the 155-pound championship. The UFC returns to Volkanovski's native nation of Australia in February 2023, and the organization will almost likely aim to have the great compete there, with the featherweight division undoubtedly needing to decide between Yair Rodriguez and Josh Emmett for its next top contender. Cejudo's fight would be a fun or fascinating alternative to battle Volkanovski in the interim. Secondly, Islam Makhachev getting the fight he deserves. Islam Makhachev has maintained a joking, dismissive attitude regarding his progress through the ranks, the opponents stationed opposite from him inside the octagon, and what each succeeding victory would mean to him over the last several years as he's made his way to the top of the lightweight class. As he prepares to battle Charles Oliveira for the lightweight championship in the main event of UFC 280 in Abu Dhabi this weekend, the surging contender opted to let down his guard a little, talking a little more about what it means to be at this moment in his career. This level of candor and transparency is a significant shift for the gifted grappler who enters Saturday's show on a 10-fight winning run. Makhachev has always been eager to describe each victory as predictable, regarding each victory as predestined, while providing a sly smile that made it clear there was some gamesmanship and competitive motivation behind his remarks in prior talks ahead of recent bouts. Rather than a goal or mission that he may not fulfill, he positioned reaching the top of the 155-pound weight class as the next stop on his trip. His assurance was unshakable. But now that he's ready to compete for championship gold this weekend, Makhachev has been a bit more explicit about what it means to him and why he'll make the most of the chance before him on Saturday night. Finally, a UFC fight that left one of the contenders motionless. After a week off, the UFC returned to its Apex TV studio to shoot a Fight Night event in Las Vegas for ESPN+, and boy did it start with a bang. Pete Rodriguez and Mike Jackson tossed slugs in a welterweight opening, and despite being rescheduled for 3 rounds, Rodriguez halted the event early. Rodriguez pummeling his opponent with body strikes, punched his head cleanly, then took him down with a devastating knee to the face. Jackson's legs seemed to be buckled, and he was twisted backward. He remained unconscious and unmoving for at least 1 minute, nearly as long as the battle itself, which lasted 93 seconds. As Jackson eventually regained consciousness, the Apex crowd began to clap, and when he appeared to be in fine form, replays of the crushing conclusion were shown on the big screens. Well, that's a wrap for this video. What do you think about White's comments? Is Aussie really a one-trick pony, or does he have much more to offer? Let us know in the comments below. It'd be awesome if you gave this video a thumbs up, and please do subscribe for more scrumptious videos like this. We'll see you in the next one.